I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
United States of America, and to the
Republic.
Thanks, Ben.
Indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And justice for. Thank you.
What happened?
The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, a motion would be in order for the agenda as presented.
I make the motion.
Jim makes the motion. Second by Nate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. General public comment.
So,
I see we have two public comment. Lindsay Ritter, or is there anything you'd like to share with us?
Hi, no, I'm here just to listen. Thank you.
Or April Morse?
I'm just here to listen. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public that's present that I've missed? Seeing none, we will move on to old business. The first order of old business, you've had time to think about this, and who would like to step forward? First, hand raised high, is the Quarry Valley representative to serve on the Stafford Regional Advisory Board. Well, 2 weeks has not changed everyone's excitement for this position, I see. So should I give it another 2 weeks to come back, or?
Yeah, actually, Lisa, this is Gail. That would help me. I've been struggling with Benjamin being sick and having to drive him to a doctor's appointment, so I don't dare say yes this week.
Okay. So why don't we do this? I will sign up to do it so we have a representative on paper, and then I will ask every month who would like to take that over.
That sounds good.
Great.
Thank you, Lisa.
The second piece of old business is the landowner access agreement. And I know that we have a representative from that organization with us, Andy, if you would like to speak.
Yeah, this is Andy Vermillier. I'm the president of Slate Valley Trails. Thanks for taking this up. So I've presented a landowner access agreement to the board to consider. It would kind of define the maintenance of the trail. Also, it includes your wish to have signage that only makes the trail available to the public during non-school hours. And if there's anything else that the board thinks is important that should be integrated into this agreement, it's a great opportunity to make sure that we're all on the same page with the projects going forward. So if there are any questions about the agreement, I'm happy to entertain or answer those questions.
Does anyone from the board have any questions about the agreement or about the concept in general?
I don't.
Go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Seth.
I
I was just going to say, I don't think it should be something we execute until we have, a legal representative look at it.
100% my question exactly too. Right? Just whether or not the new agreement has been reviewed yet.
Yeah.
It's currently sitting at Chris Leopold's on his desk.
I'm happy to entertain if there's any specific concerns. I know a lot of landowners are always worried about liability, and that agreement offers more protection than the state statutes. And so if there are any questions about that, I'm happy to give information.
Well, as I said, it's currently on the desk of our attorney, and there were a couple in 4 under length of agreement. Even though it says 3 years, you still left the number 10 on there, so that would need to be a correction. And I mean, we can wait till we hear back from our attorney, but there were a couple of things under 3 where it says the landowner shall not obstruct or close the recreational trails. While I understand the premise of that, there probably should be some caveat to that. I mean, as landowners, of having the option if something was happening or we were doing work or we were having some kind of celebration or something there. So just having kind of like that blanket statement, I think, and we'll wait and see what our attorney says, but that might need to be a little more landowner friendly for us. So there were a couple things in here that I thought, but as I said, it's on his desk. And so at this point, I think we're going to wait till we hear back from him. And is it going to inhibit you if we do not approve this until our December meeting, which would be the 3rd Monday of December?
I think the timeline works fine on our end. The next grant opportunity has a flexible deadline, so that should be fine. And you know, we're fine with working for whatever works best. Obviously, for you, that's super important to us. So I think it is important that Slate Valley knows if there's closed trails so that we can communicate that to the public in our user groups. And that's why it's written that way. But of course, we're accommodating in any way we can to make it happen.
Sure. And I think there's just a couple of things that we might, and like I said, we'll wait to see what our lawyer said, but we might want to just have tweaks. So were there any other questions or comments from board members?
Nope.
I mean, I think as you know, and Kristen?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I wondered, since we have Andy here, is there anything else that you wanted to share with us that you thought would be important for us to know before we hear from the lawyer?
I just want to say that I think this is an asset to the town and to our youth. I was over on the rail trail a couple weeks ago and I ran into some, I assume like middle school age kids, and they were just raving about the skills park over there. And so I think the community is super excited about using this trail, and it's a real asset. So I'm happy that we're working with you on this.
Great. And I think that's certainly the consensus of the board, and that was our consensus at the last meeting. We have had the opportunity to speak with the town, so I think we've ironed out any miscommunication or concerns that there were there. And I don't think at any time the board was not positive about this, and we certainly all see this as an asset to the community as well as to our students at Poultney Elementary School. But we do have a responsibility, obligation to send it to the attorney to make sure for those that come after us that we haven't done anything to tie their hands or anything detrimental to us. So if there aren't any other questions, we could place this back on the December agenda under old business for action at that time once we hear back from our attorney. All right, not hearing anything. Andy, thank you very much for reworking the agreement and for joining us tonight to address any questions. We appreciate the work, and we look forward to seeing what the trail will look like when finished.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, winter sports. Who's taking that subject up?
Is Joe Harrington on the call?
He is.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
Joe,
I'm here.
Yeah,
Yep.
Joe, you want to give a brief overview of winter sports and what that's going to look like?
Sure. Of course, it's ever changing and expected to change again as of Friday. This coming Friday, there are updates that are coming out frequently. As of right now, today, the official practice start date for any VPA sanctioned sport, at least the ones that have been given the go to start, are the Monday after Thanksgiving, with a competitive season starting hopefully January 11th, which is their 6 weeks of practices to see how things go. There are a lot of protocols in place. Obviously, one of the biggest ones is lack of spectators. There are other subtle protocols that are being put in place, but that is the biggest one. They're looking to extend the season to the end of March, which is traditionally the finals are around the second week in March, but they are looking to extend the winter season through the end of March. Of course, with rec programs, just as of Friday of this past week being canceled, we're kind of in a holding pattern and see how things are going to go. But nothing has changed. As of now, we're starting the Monday after Thanksgiving with a 6-week practice, see how it goes period, and then competition starting January 11th with an extended season.
And Joe, do you know if all three high schools have the ability to stream, or I know Greg is on the call also, or once we start playing games, are there any kind of upgrades that need to be made to any of the buildings in order to allow that to happen?
For West Rutland, we did purchase the updated huddle program. So that will be up and running by the start of competition. I believe Poultney and Proctor are looking into the same program. Not sure how far along they are with it, but I know that they were looking into it.
Okay, great.
The huddle program, I'm not sure if you're aware of it. It's a stationary camera that's placed in the gym. Has live streaming component to it, but coaches use it as a training tool. The nice thing about it is you can use it for other reasons too. If you have performances in your gyms, whether be it holiday concerts or anything else, you can stream anything that happens within that space.
What's the price on that? This is Gail.
Yeah, so the first year is, if you already have some people, I think Poultney and West Rutland already have the huddle program. I don't believe Proctor has it. So we've been kind of paying for it anyways over the past few years, but the COVID special, the first year is $2,700. The second year is $6,000. It's a 2-year contract. So the nice thing about the streaming is that you can charge to, there are ways to charge for use. West Rutland is specifically asking for donations as a kind of like a game fee. What you would normally charge for a game, we're asking for that donation or season's pass donation to go forward to pay for it in the second year. Actually, COVID funds should be able to pay for the first year.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So we were able to, for West Rutland anyways, to get COVID funds to pay for that first year of implementation. And then the second year, the $6,000 is we're going to be able to raise via donations. And we're already on our way of being able to cover that cost, hopefully.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
And then after the second year, Joe, is there like an annual membership or maintenance fee or what happens?
It's a 2-year contract. You can drop it after that second year, or you can continue it. If you continue it, the following year is more expensive, or you can just drop the program altogether and go back to a basic agreement, which is what we had to start with.
Okay. It seems odd
it's a 2-year contract.
That the fee grows rather than reducing. It's almost like a backward. kind of thing. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Joe-
Lewis, are we correct, Lewis, that we can cover the first year in each building at $2,700 under COVID monies?
It's definitely a covered expense. Joe reached out to me quite a while ago, and I did approve his. If the other schools want to reach out to me about it, they can do that as well. I'll just have to check to see how much money we have left in the COVID fund.
Okay, thank you.
Lewis, I have a quick question. Do we have, and sorry for my ignorance on the ins and outs of the finance part, is there something along the lines of, like in a private business world, we can do something like an accrual to potentially cover the anticipated cost or a portion of it for next year? Is there a way to do that given the rules and regulations around our budgeting, or is it completely forbidden because it's crossing years?
So just to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly, are we saying that we can pay for next year's expense this year by doing an accrual?
Yeah, or at least accrue part of the way towards it, right? To try to balance it more like a 50-50 expense.
Yeah. Not really. I mean, we're supposed to, especially when you're dealing with federal funds, you're supposed to keep the expense in the actual year that it incurred. And just given that it's special COVID funds, I don't think we'd want to. The short answer is no. I don't think it's appropriate.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That sounds great. Thank you, Joe, for that update.
Welcome.
I did have one thing I wanted to speak to under new business. We're going to be getting our Quarry Valley report together here soon, and just to all, particularly high school principals, we talked about this prior, but and this is something we used to do when we had to submit to town reports, but I'd like to see from each high school the list of 2020 graduates, what our students are doing, so we can share that out in our Quarry Valley booklet to our community members. And Lewis, and I know we've spoken about this, but also the grid that we used to do that lists the teacher, the school, education, years, and salary. So that there were requests and have been, particularly the past couple years, because we changed format since we've just been doing the Quarry Valley book, rather than how we used to do it, submitting to each individual town. So if you could go back and provide that information as well. Are there any objections to having that in the Quarry Valley annual report?
No.
Lisa, what were those three data? What were the three pieces of data you said?
So I can show you in the old like Proctor report, and I know West Rutland did the same. It was just like an Excel sheet for teachers. It would list their name, what they taught, what their degree was, their highest level of education, how long they had been in our system, and what their current salary was. And
Okay.
from the high school principals to if we could submit our high school graduates of 2020 and where they are or where they said they were going when they graduated. And also we used to submit kind of like what the cover page was, any kind of highlights or like that. So I don't know how lengthy that might become for the report, but I just feel like that these graduates are in product, so to speak, and our community members and taxpayers are investors, and we should be sharing what that finished product looks like as we send them out into the world. Okay. Moving on to the consent. Was there any other new business? Moving on to the consent agenda. Approval of minutes, October 16th, 2020. A motion would be in order.
I'll make a
I will
motion.
make the motion.
Jim will make the motion and Nate will second. Are there any changes, additions, deletions to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Approval of warrants. Warrants are received in your email for review, and Seth reviews and approves. Questions should be sent to Lewis if there are concerns. A motion would be in order to approve the warrants.
I'll make that motion.
Artie makes the motion. Second.
Kristen Whitman can second.
Kristen Whitman seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Superintendent's report.
Thanks, Lisa. I have a few items to discuss. Traditionally, this is all about budget. This year, we have a few other things to consider as well. So on October 23rd, we did have an update to Vermont Strong and Healthy Starts. We've been working with building administrators, with staff, as facilities directors and our nurses. We feel that our schools have met all the recommendations, are at a good place, but it's something that we do monitor on a daily basis, just to make sure that's, as our students or staff enter the building, that they're in a safe and healthy place. So like I said before, we feel we're in a good place as of right now, but it is a day-to-day, monitoring, just make sure that we are current and we are where we need to be. The big concern, obviously, around this time is the holiday travel. As we're moving into Thanksgiving and the winter holidays. Last week there was a bit of a change in terms of the travel restrictions, where obviously you've seen this, where if anybody leaves the state of Vermont or somebody returns, that there's a mandatory quarantine. That will shift some things, obviously, for our families and for our staff. The one thing we are asking both our communities and our staff to do is make good decisions as they prepare for the holiday seasons. We have been, so we've gotten through the first quarter with relatively few incidences. A large part of that is due to the staff and the administration building out some great plans. This fall, we've met all the protocols, all the safety recommendations and requirements, and that's allowed us to stay open to this point. But it does hinge upon our communities, and that's something we have to be very careful of. It's that we're asking our community members to continue to make good decisions and really, as we go into Thanksgiving, to really, do their best to really not travel or to avoid large group gatherings, and doing so will help us stay open a little bit longer. But we do understand it's gonna be a tough holiday season for all involved. It'll be a little bit different. But like I said, it's due in large part just keeping our schools open and keeping everybody safe and healthy. Along with our schedule, I've said this before, but we will remain on our current schedule to at least January 26th, which is the end of the second quarter. That is the 4 days in person, 1 day remote. We are currently meeting with union leadership, the teaching staff, take a look at what the second half of the year might be. We're taking a look at potential for the virtual academy, as well as looking at our current model with some slight alterations. So we're working through different versions of that, and we have taken a lot of points in consideration from parents, from community members, from staff, administration. So in December, we should have some recommendations for the boards in terms of what the second half of the year will look like, or what we feel should look like. Along with the concerns, we always have concerns about staffing in a normal year. Just we have depleted subpools. This year, the depleted subpools made things a little more difficult. I have been saying this, but there may be a point in time where we do have to shut down a school for the day because of staffing concerns, and that's something which we'll work closely with the building administrators on. If they feel that we cannot operate in a safe and healthy manner, we may have to, like I said, close the building down for the day or for a couple of days while we get staff back. And as we move into holiday season, it is a concern because if a staff member or someone makes a decision to travel and is forced into mandatory quarantine, it may make things a little more difficult for us to keep the building open. But it is something for us to consider. And I just want to kind of talk about 2 points here where, while we have these staffing days in which we may have to shift to a fully remote, we were looking at, obviously we're asking for staff to let us know as early as possible, because we do want to let parents know as early as we can that preferably the night before, that we may have to shift in one of our schools to a full remote option for that day. The last thing we want to have happen is 6:30 in the morning. We have to sit there and say, hey, we're shifting to a full remote because of staffing concerns or something else. So, we're working through that. The question has been asked as we move into the, close to the winter months, is about snow days. And we've decided that this year snow days will remain as they have been in the past, and large part due to just the logistical concerns around snow days. A lot of times, snow days will, be up like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, start to take a look at, talk to the, road crews and see what's going on. As we look at the, shifting to a full remote, we felt that it might be very difficult to do, get in terms of technology, having students have their Chromebooks at home. So we felt if there was a need to close the building for snow or for winter-related, reasons, we would go back to just having a normal school closure. We also felt that typically when you have snow days, there is a good chance within our communities that there will also be a power outage as well, which added some hardships. So we felt that it best for us this year, at least for snow days or weather-related emergencies, just to go to a closure. And we do have days built into our calendar to compensate for that, so it won't impact us at the end of the year. So, as I said before, the Quarry Valley administrator has been working close with myself and Lewis and building a budget, which Lewis will talk about through the course of the year. I have also been meeting with principals for the 7 through 12 buildings to look at unification efforts and look at what the next steps might be, both short-term and long-term. And as well as the GRCSU administrative team meets on a weekly basis to really kind of go through and discuss not just, what's going on right now with COVID and with the holidays, but also building out in the future as well. So, and then obviously a couple events we had were parent-teacher conferences, which I can let the building principals talk about how well that went. We just did, they said, in our first market period, and we have the Thanksgiving break coming up. And there's one more thing. On the 19th, this Thursday, you've heard about this voluntary testing that will take place. So the GRCSU will have their voluntary COVID testing take place on this Thursday, the 19th in the morning. We do have a process in place in which all the kits will be delivered to the central office. And then myself and other central office administrators will then drive the kits out to the 8 buildings, and then there'll be a short window for the teachers to take their test for those who want to take it. And then when they're done, we'll collect, bring it back to the central office, and we will ship it overnight. So that will take place on the 19th. So any questions?
This is Gail. I don't have a question, but I do have a concern because I've heard of a number of, I think it's not just the holidays that we're looking at that should be a concern, but hunting season is also upon us. And a lot of people have camps in New York or New Hampshire. And I'm not sure how many kids have been going out to go to hunting camp, but that's another thing that we should keep our eye on.
Right. I mean, and that's, you're 100% correct. There are a lot of things that occur here in the fall. And like I said, we ask people to make good decisions and people to be honest about their travels. Like I said, we operate on very thin margins, and it is a very fragile system. And, one of the things we say is we've seen very limited number of outbreaks in schools, more in communities that are being brought into schools. So we're asking, like I said, our community members to make good decisions, and they're tough decisions. I know that when Governor Scott did make the announcement, we had learned that there potentially might be some of our families who are already out at some of their hunting camps.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it is something which we do ask people to be honest with us, and just, like I said, make good decisions as they plan out from this point forward. So, thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Chris's report? Hearing none. Moving on to principal's report. At the top, we have Poultney Elementary School.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. As Mr. Superintendent Sell said, we did have parent-teacher conferences. They were held virtually. And I feel that the feedback we received was mostly positive. I know teachers had prepared data to share with parents. And many of them had sent out questionnaires to the parents to seek feedback if there was anything that the parents wanted to talk about, so the teachers knew ahead of time. So I think that went pretty well. I haven't heard otherwise anyways. And I would like to just thank the teachers and students and families, because it has been, a really busy, really trying time, but I think everyone is really pulled together and has been working really hard to give kids what they need. And I'm very proud of the staff and the community for that. So thank you. And one other thing, in addition to the voluntary COVID testing, it is the 50th day of school at Poultney Elementary School, and we will be wearing our 50s garb. So I'll have pictures for you for my next report.
Great, thank you. And I think we should also note that Kristen has collected all but 2415 of overdue food balances. So if anybody's looking for collection agency individual, I would recommend her. Thank you very much. Moving on, Poultney High School.
Good evening, everybody. So not much to, follow up with Kristen and Chris said too with parent-teacher conferences last week. I'm still amazed at the new interventions that our staff and students are doing. It wasn't in my report today, but I just found or just got the email today from our art teacher. We have a virtual art show that's online. It's kind of neat. You plug in, you go into a room, and it has all the pictures on the walls and stuff, and you can look at the different pictures. So it's great seeing how people are adapting and doing, the new things that are coming out of this. So, we did our first COVID drill a couple weeks ago where we, in lieu of our lockdown drill, went into the classrooms and just were asking the random questions we would ask if we had to, like, how many people left the state? And then we would pick random kids, ask them, how did you get to school today? Who did you ride? If you rode a bus, where did you sit on the bus? Where did you eat lunch? Who did you eat lunch with? Just those questions that we'd be asking them. Dr. Chick's been great, just, keeping us abreast with everything that's going on. So can't say enough about that. And our, everybody in the staff is really, pulling together here.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Joe? Hearing none, moving on to Poultney Elementary School. Oh, I'm sorry, Proctor Elementary School. They're all just running together for me.
Well, I saw Joe left the meeting right after he was done, so I was hoping to see a question for him. So just to go along with parent-teacher conferences, we did student-led conferences for grades 2 through 6 again. So the parents joined their student via Zoom or Google Meets. That was very successful. We had Red Ribbon Week last week, and if you take a look at my report, we had some very creative costumes and things like that. I'm trying to keep some normalcy to our school day. Been really busy working on the budget, interviewing for a position of 0.5 literacy interventionist. We finally, hopefully that contract will be approved tonight. That's been a vacancy all year, so we're very thrilled to get that filled. I'm on the Come Alive Outside committee, so we're working on the winter passport and trying to get creative on how we can get the communities involved. That's been really fun, something I haven't done in the past, and just kind of thinking outside the box to help families get outside, socially distance, maintain, healthy boundaries, but still being involved in the community. So that's been really, really fun. I do have a question in regards to our town report. Typically, we kind of highlight what we're doing currently in the schools, like our music program, our art program. Would you like it done via a typical year or what we're doing right now during COVID year?
Oh, I'd like it. I'd like us to talk about the year we're in. I think that's important. But with respect to, and I'm sure you recall when we were the old SU and we submitted to the town, we submitted additional information about things about our graduates and things like that. Right. I think it's important to show community members how we're adapting to kind of just like Joe talked about. We're still having an art show. It's just virtual. We're having parent-teacher conferences, we're just doing it differently. I think it's important for people that aren't involved in the school or don't have children in the school to understand how adjustments have been made and how students and faculty have acclimated to this pandemic. So that would be my preference. I don't know. Other board members are welcome to join in and with your thoughts.
I would agree with that. I would like to know about this year.
Okay, I was just looking back on my old report and it was kind of like highlighting like our music program and how we're doing. And it's like, okay, so we're not doing music lessons right now. It's, you know, things are very different. So okay, that's good information. Does anybody have any questions on my report or?
Okay, thank you very much. Proctor High School.
Here we go. The report is fairly self-explanatory, but I do want to highlight a couple of items. Just to echo what everybody else was saying, parent-teacher conferences went very well. Many of the teachers coordinated with one another so that they were sequentially held. If there were multiple subjects that a parent needed to speak with the teacher concerning. I hope the board had an opportunity to just go to the website and check out our virtual open house. You know, one of the things that is interesting this year is that there are aspects of this year that, while out of necessity we've had to do it, may well have been things that we wish to revisit in the future. And what do I mean? A virtual open house. I've heard a number of parents inform me and just email me that the virtual open house was very informative. Why? Because they could do it at their own leisure, number one. Number two, they could actually access a course that the child is not in at present, that they're thinking of having them enter for the second semester. So these, and we're actually, well, not we, they are thinking of actually doing another virtual open house for the second semester. So this has worked out much better than I would have expected. And it really wasn't a Bob Johnson idea, it was the teacher's idea, and they're to be commended for the work that they did. And last but not least, I really have to thank the soccer players. This year was a special year for them. In the face of so much adversity, so much that they had to overcome, travel restrictions, attendance restrictions, and yet the girls persevered for another year, okay, division champs, and the boys came within one goal. And if you talk with them, it was closer than just one goal. It was merely a couple of feet, Mr. Johnson, okay, a couple of feet. So they are really to be commended for the work they've done. And I really have to say, for a little tiny school, they put forth one heck of a sports program. And Jake is really to be commended for all the hard work that he's done. And last but not least, to kind of echo what Joe Harrington was saying, Joe was kind enough to send me the information regarding that Hubble program. And I forwarded to Jake. The gentleman who is the sales representative, I believe, is in Nebraska, okay? But I think Jake has set up a time for us to meet with him. So once we get all the specs on that, hopefully within the next few days, we'll be able to talk with Lewis about installing that apparatus in our gym. So I'm looking forward to that and looking forward to a great basketball season, hopefully. Okay. Other than that, any questions anybody has on anything within that document?
Hearing none, we will move on to West Rutland. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. I've submitted my report. Sorry if it didn't get into the original packet. I'm not sure what happened, but thank you to Superintendent Sell for passing it on. I want to thank the staff for wonderful parent-teacher conferences. Things went very, very well. and the staff continue to amaze me with their resiliency, as with the kids. Something that did not make it into the report is tomorrow we have our Student of the Quarter Awards. We actually did them for the spring about probably 4 weeks ago, and we're now doing the first quarter awards tomorrow, and included in that is our rock lab, which was able to socially distance a musical performance without singing. It's all acoustic and drums and piano. And so we're looking forward to that performance tomorrow to be included in our Student of the Quarter, just trying, as folks have repeated tonight, find alternative ways to celebrate what we're doing at school. You can also see from my report that I'm working on a lot of, I'm not the new guy anymore. There's a lot of work to be done. I've started to work on our continuous improvement plan, looking at how we use data and provide interventions to children as we go through. This is going to be a multi-year plan that I'm excited about taking on, and I've got lots of great people who are working behind the scenes to help me. So things have been going very, very well around those. And our new literacy program, the Pearson program, has been well received. We're working with Pearson on that, and also coming up with how we can enhance that program as the teachers get used to it. Last year we ran a pilot in grades 3 and 4. This year we're doing all K to 6. There's a wonderful online component that goes with that too. So I'm very excited about the work and proud of the work that my staff is doing at West Rutland to move us forward. And a credit to Mr. Harrington and his leadership with all of the sports as well. So without him, I'm not sure where we would be on that front. So thank you to all of them. Any questions that I can ask or answer? Or ask?
What about the replacement boiler?
Yep, Jim, we are waiting on the boiler to come. The company is ready to go. We're running on one boiler right now. Getting supply, as with all things COVID, it was brought up at the last board meeting. I think it was at this one, and then again at GRCSU. We're ready to go. We just have to wait for its arrival. We're anticipating it coming any week now. The building actually is quite warm. We've been the benefactors of at least some warm temperatures. So we are doing okay, Jim, but yes, we need to get that in. It's not a delay on anybody other than the manufacturer.
I understand. I was worried about that very same thing when we discussed this 2 months ago.
Yep.
Correct. The ability to get stuff. So I'm a little concerned, but I know it'll get done, but I'm just worried a little bit.
Yep, I would agree. I have cautious optimism, and the company, the vendor that we have chosen to do the install is literally ready to go the minute that comes in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. I would just say that I heard from other parents from other schools that they were very impressed with how seamless the conferences went, and encouraged us to continue this option of having virtual call-in conferences. They felt that certainly worked well, as most parents are working, and they scheduled their lunch times around being available just to touch base with their teachers. The virtual open house I thought was amazing. I went on just to look at that and was very impressed with how well that was put together. I love the fact that we are continuing to find alternative ways to continue to celebrate our students and share that with the community. So thank you to all of our building administrators and faculty for taking on that added piece to be able to do that. Thank you very much. Moving on to personnel, we have a couple of retirements in our package. I don't know, Mr. Slinker, if you want to speak to either one of those.
Sure. We have two wonderful, long-standing educators at West Rutland School retiring. Kathy Turgeon, who currently teaches third grade, and Christy Fluziak, who currently teaches fourth grade. I do not have the numbers of years of service, but we're talking decades. Wonderful educators, and they will be dearly missed, and we wish them well. It's interesting. You've got two veteran teachers who continue to impress me every single day with their resiliency and in the face of virtual learning have been embracing it and doing a really good job. So hats off to them. They will be it'll be hard pressed to replace them as we move forward, but they are wonderful educators, and we'll work on looking to fill those vacancies in the spring when the time is more appropriate.
Thank you. A motion would be in order to accept the two resignations.
I make a motion.
Seth will second.
All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Contract recommendations. At the top, you have professional staff, Sarah Godfrey, which is a horizontal move. Are there any questions about that?
Lisa, this is Kristen Ross. Sorry, there's piano in the background here. Chris or Lisa, for some reason I only have like half of our materials. I only had half the principal's reports. I didn't have a superintendent report at all. So I have not looked at the contracts because that wasn't included. There's a whole bunch of repeated things that were sent, but can somebody just forward out all the materials again while Lisa's talking about the contracts?
If you guys could send that to me too, Sarah. I got the same thing Kristen did. I think I've got 6 of the Turgeon resignation and none of the stuff you're talking about now.
Yeah.
All right, I'll text Wendy right now to see if she can resend all the materials.
They came all at once at 21 files, but a bunch of the files were the same files. So, so sorry, I just kind of going through that now, realizing that I don't have anything from Lewis. So if we're doing budget drafts, stuff like that, I don't have those either.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, I think it's a around the board topic. Pardon the pun.
So anyway, Lisa, if you want to go ahead and just kind of describe what you're looking at slowly, I think I can keep up, at least for this part.
Okay. So the first piece is a contract recommendation professional staff. It is for Sarah Godfrey. She is a Poultney Elementary School teacher. It is simply a horizontal move from $71,713 to $73,739. The second piece on the page is non-union and supervisor contract rates for increased consideration, and without objection, I would move that to executive session. The third piece on the page is support staff recommendation. Terry Sadie for Poultney High School, which is a 0.5. Library para at $15.42 an hour. Ashley Siemens for Poultney Elementary School, which is a reading assistant at $14.25 an hour. Are libraries open in all buildings?
Lisa, I can speak to West Rutland. We are open in a limited capacity. We actually have protocols, and I think most of the buildings do, for taking books out and returning them, following all procedures to make sure that the books are safe when they are brought back. But it is not open as it has been in the past. All of our shelves are still covered. Classrooms are not going in there. It's very limited, but it is open for resources and for students and teachers to access those resources when they need them.
Okay. Is the reading assistant position something that was an unfilled position at Poultney Elementary?
Yes, it was an unfilled position.
Okay.
Lisa, is there a contract in there for my 0.5 literacy specialist?
There is not.
Okay.
No. What is the difference between a reading assistant and a literacy specialist?
I can't speak for Christy, but a specialist, I believe, would be licensed. Our reading assistant is an instructional assistant through Gen Ed funds.
Yes, mine is a licensed teacher.
Okay.
If the contract comes to you within the next 2 days, could there be a way it's signed because she's supposed to start Thursday?
Christy, your position would come under the SU. It's grant funded.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Louis.
Is there a full-time librarian at Poultney High School, Lewis? And we're hiring a para to be in the library with her as well?
There's a full-time librarian that's shared between the elementary school and the high school.
Okay.
And then the half-time para at the high school.
Okay, thank you. So before I go on to extracurricular, could we have a motion to approve the professional staff for Sarah Godfrey and support staff of Terry Sadie and Ashley Siemens?
This is Gail Curtis. I move we accept them.
Second?
Second.
Second by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. The second piece is extracurricular. Have you all received the packets or no? Okay, so I'll just read those. The first one is for James Kelly, a mentor stipend of $500. Melissa Christensen, Poultney High School Art Club Advisor, $707. Melissa Christensen, Poultney Yearbook Advisor, $1,719. The rest are all for West Rutland. Allie Mitchell, 7-8 girls basketball coach, $750. Alan White, 7-8 boys basketball coach, $750. David Bartlett, 6th grade boy basketball coach, $1,000. Karen Ames, 6th grade girls basketball coach, $1,250. Melissa Guay, 5th grade boys, $750. Lauren Harvey, 5th grade girls, $750. Carl Serrani, varsity girls, $4,000. Jordan Toller, varsity boys, $3,000. Matthew Serrani, JV girls, $1,750. Mike Davis, JV boys, $1,750. Joe Harrington, I do have one question. Are there straight 5th grade games and straight 6th grade games? Or do those games, are they generally mixed games?
It kind of depends on the numbers. A lot of times they are straight 5, straight 6. Sometimes we need to move kids back and forth. But for the majority, yes.
Okay.
But there are times that we do have to mix them if numbers make us do that.
Okay. And have we done numbers for basketball yet for any schools, or we're just approving contracts in anticipation?
So my contracts are based on the numbers that I've got coming for this season. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi,
All right,
I have
are there
two
any
questions.
questions about the extracurricular contracts?
Yes, Seth has two questions. First one, Lisa, just a quick recap. I'm sorry, were there any Poultney coaches listed in that long list of
No.
coaches? And I didn't think so. Okay, that's fine. No need to elaborate. Second question for Joe. Art club in Poultney, is that active at the moment? What are they doing, and what are they okay to do?
She's doing some stuff virtually, I believe, right now. They're not meeting after school or anything, but she's kind of doing some virtual stuff with them.
Okay, thank you.
And who does the mentor stipend individual belong to? James Kelly.
He belongs to me, but I believe he's mentoring the driver's ed teacher at West Rutland.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions on the extracurricular contracts? Hearing none, a motion would be in order to approve the extracurricular contracts as read.
I can make the motion. Kristen Whitman.
Okay. Second.
Second.
I'll second.
Second by Nate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Vacancies, I don't have anything in my pocket about that. I'm guessing those are still kind of the general ones that we talked about, some under principals report.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to finance. Lewis.
Good evening, everyone. So I just emailed the budget. Hopefully everybody received that. For those of you who didn't receive it to begin with. Give everybody a minute just to check real quick and then I'll get started.
I'm not seeing it.
Okay. Well, I'll just walk you through it slowly then. Okay, so I'll get started. I will, if you don't already have it, I'll make sure that it gets sent out to you either later tonight or tomorrow.
Can I, sorry to interrupt, this is Kristen. Is there a way to share screen so that we can see what you're looking at instead of you just describing it?
Yes, I think I can do that.
That would be awesome, thanks.
Give me a second.
I just resent it as well, so hopefully it'll come through as well.
I just received it from you, Chris.
Yep, got it. I sent it to Kristen and Kristen. Sorry.
You have multiple copies. Feast or famine. Wendy will be sending the board report to you as well.
So we're all looking at the summary of changes draft one, correct? Is that what you're
I'm pressing the button now to share it as well for those of you that don't have it.
okay.
Okay, so the first page, the whole document's 20 pages. The first page is the summary of changes. So this summary of changes lists all of the major items that are having an effect on the financial piece of the budget. So the way the budget's broken down, it's each school has their own section, and then there's a section at the end labeled district wide, and that's where you would have any expenses that aren't specific to a certain school, such as tuition, plant operations is all lumped together under there, fiscal services, SRO. There's a district wide athletics and so forth. So under district-wide, the major changes in the budget, special ed disallowed increased by $86,000. We did talk about this at the SU board meeting. We increased some of our estimates. Looking at the actuals from prior years, we increased the estimates for the amount of time that paras are spending as disallowed time from 15% to 17.5%. And we also increased the time for the related service providers, such as the OT, PT, and speech. We had them at 0% in prior years. We increased them to 5%. So those changes resulted in an $86,000 increase in your local budget. In the past, you were seeing those charges, but you were just seeing them after the fact when we did the bill backs. The SU assessment is down by $67,000. Right now, first draft has been presented to the board. These numbers are based on the second draft, which will go to the SU board on Wednesday. The general fund budget, the assessment is down $25,000. And special ed budget, the assessment is down approximately $92,000. So the Quarry Valley's portion of those savings is $67,000. There's a 10% increase in health insurance built into this, which is approximately $145,000. Right now, we're being told that what was provided by Visbit is a 9.8% overall increase in health insurance. So we had budgeted the 10% before we got that estimate from Visbit, so we were pretty close. Also, earlier this year, you approved the Proctor refinance of the lease. That resulted in a one-time increase of $77,000, but an overall savings over the life of the loan of $45,000. If you recall, when we approved that lease, the prior lease had a stepped increase each year. So it was going over the course of the 10 years, it was going up a little bit each year, but then towards the end of the lease, it was jumping up $150,000 each year. What we did is we took that lease, we refinanced it at a lower interest rate, and we made the payments the same every year. So that resulted in a one-time increase this year, and it'll be flat for the remainder of the 10 years, so we won't see another increase. Also, Proctor's other bond will be paid off next year, so we'll have those savings in next year's budget. We added a new line for field maintenance for $10,000. That's to maintain all of the field, Terranovich, Poultney High School, and West Rutland. We added, a tuition revenue increase by $135,000. That's an estimate based on this year's students. So taking those students and moving them forward one year, and just kind of estimating what we think the current sixth grade class, where they'll go for like Wells, Middletown, places that we know we get students, Ira. So that is resulting in an increase in revenue of $135,000. That's also based on an increase in our tuition rate. I'm estimating approximately a 3% increase, which would bring our tuition rate to $17,500. I will be bringing that to the board at next month's meeting for approval. Increase in transportation costs of $75,000. This is a result of two reasons. One, we renewed the contract with Betcha last year, which had a large increase in the first few years. It had been quite a while since we had gone out to bid, so our contract price was way below market value. So we were seeing a large increase in the contract rate just due to rebidding. But the second reason is we receive approximately 45% back in revenue as a reimbursement for all transportation costs. That revenue is based on a 2-year lag. So any revenue we receive in FY22 is based on FY20 expense. And if you recall, earlier this spring, our transportation costs were reduced due to COVID, and we received credits from the vendor for labor and for fuel. So that decreased our expense cost, which in turn is going to lower our revenue that we receive in FY22. So that's resulting in the increase in costs. The partial offsets to that would be the surplus that we ended FY20 with. So those are the major changes for the district-wide section. At Poultney Elementary School, there's a a position that was funded locally that's been moved to the SU. No change in the position. It's just moving the wages to a purchase service. That position is currently funded 75% through a grant and 25% local. There is a staff increase built into the budget of a 0.5 FTE for a BCBA, which is a board certified behavior analyst. And then added the after school program for $10,000. Previous to this year, the after school program has been funded through Medicaid funds. Those Medicaid funds are drying up. So this needs to be moved to local budget. We tried to move it to local budget last year and the budget couldn't sustain it. We committed to funding it one more year out of the SU, but we can no longer sustain that.
How far out are they? We talked about this before, about being able to look at tapestry. As I recall, there's some kind of time frame. And is that next year that they can look at having tapestry?
So it's a 5-year cycle. I don't recall what year they're on. It may be FY23. I could look into that though.
For some reason, I'm thinking it's 2 more years, but I could be wrong.
I have a vague remembrance that it's further out as well. It's not.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think it had just renewed when we were talking about it last year.
I think this is our 2nd year, so I do believe we have 3 additional years for the 5-year commitment.
Okay. At Poultney High
Can I just
School.
ask one more thing? Have we, since they have had some lost revenue, have we reached out to them to see if they would be interested perhaps in just doing a 3-year contract with us? Because they've also suffered some revenue losses here, particularly from the spring. Would it behoove us to see if that's a possibility?
Who were you referring to? I'm sorry.
Tapestry.
So it's a 5-year grant cycle. It's not a contract. So
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
so they'd have to wait till that grant cycle is over when we apply for the grant. So if no other questions on that, we'll move on to Poultney High School. So there was one position that was not filled, and that we're having those savings this year as well. That was a psychological service position. So we'll have those savings this year and next year and going forward. And then there's another reduction of a 0.5 FTE position. And we can go into more details on these positions when we move into executive session. At Proctor Elementary, there's no material changes included in the budget. Proctor High School, there was one position cut this year as well. So those savings are flowing through the next year. And that was the Director of Student Management position. And those savings are approximately $105,000. And then there was just a shift of a position. The library repair was moved to the office. West Rutland, there was 2 retirements accounted for. Both are being replaced. We have some savings in those retirements, but so they are both eligible for the retirement incentive, but just estimating what the new salary will be minus the incentive and the current salary, there's a small savings built in. And then there is an increase of a 0.1 FTE teacher. There's currently an R teacher that's a 0.9 that's shared between West Rutland and Proctor, and this budget includes increasing her to a 1.0. Other items to consider, these are things that we can just to keep discussing. They're not built into the budget. So the Proctor High School nurse position, that position was budgeted for FY21 as a assistant to the school nurse, which would be an ESP position. Due to a lack of candidates, we hired that position as a teacher position. This budget includes that position as an ESP position. So the person that's in that position now just has a 1-year contract for the remainder of this year. So we need to discuss what that position will look like in the future and adjust this budget based on whatever that decision is. The Quarry Valley Trucks, there was a request from Proctor for a new truck that's needed to get equipment from one building to the other. I'm going to come back to that item in a minute at the end. Poultney High School is not included, but there was a request for a regular ed IA, as well as some increases for some staff members, non-union staff members. And then another item, which is not, we're not sure about yet, is the possible reduction in title funding for the Poultney Elementary Interventionist. As I mentioned earlier, currently their interventionist is funded 75% through title. There's been a decrease in title funds over the years, and that position is exceeding the amount of funding that should be received by Poultney Elementary School. I have to have further discussions with the grant coordinator, but there's a possibility of that funding being reduced in FY22. So all of that included. So the next about 15 pages are just the details of the budget for every line item. If you have the budget in front of you, I'm just going to scroll down to the end. It's on probably, let's see here, page. Anything in yellow is stuff that's still pending. So right now, total expense is up by $214,000, which is 1.18%. Educational spending is down. So educational spending is the amount we have to raise in property taxes. It takes your total expense minus your local revenue. Local revenue is anything other than property taxes. So education spending right now is down by $79,000, which is 0.5%. I'll just repeat that just for everyone. It's actually down by 0.5%. And then the last few pages are just the bill back detail. There's the regular ed bill backs, and then the special ed bill backs. These are positions that are contracted at the SU but billed back to the local districts. The special ed ones are the disallowed amount, and then the regular ed ones are just positions that are partially grant funded or partially funded through the SU, but the remainder of their salary has to be billed to the local budget. So coming back to the truck, so I applied for a grant through the state through COVID funds, and the SU was awarded a grant in the amount of $45,000 to purchase a truck, or trucks, whichever, as much as we can get with the $45,000. So we will be looking into what we can get with that amount, and that vehicle will be shared amongst the SU based on where it's needed the most. Which at the time being is the request has come from Proctor, so that's where it will be at least based at this point. Any questions?
Louis, this is Kristen. Would the truck be, so you said it would be just transporting equipment, not human beings? I mean, besides the driver, obviously.
Correct. I mean, the main premise of it was to because Proctor does not have transportation via buses, that they would use it for the transporting of meals in case we go fully remote, or for delivering of meals on Wednesdays, and to transport meals in between the buildings. But then after we get past the pandemic, looking what uses we have for that truck in the future, which would be to transport equipment either from between buildings, or if somebody needs to run to the hardware store and get some 2x4s or other equipment, it's for that purposes. It's not to transport people.
So I would request that if this is approved and that's purchased, that there is a human being that is in charge of, even though that's a shared truck, to have one person or the clearinghouse who will keep that, the records on it, the maintenance up on it, all that stuff. I just have found with shared vehicles before in a business setting that everyone's in charge of it and no one's in charge of it. So just to, kind of make sure that that is, the oils change and all that stuff happens so that it doesn't work for 5 years and then we're done.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions for Lewis? I have questions, but they're personnel related, so I will hold those until executive session. All right, hearing none. Thank you, Lewis. The second piece in finance is the bill back handout. I don't believe Christine is here.
She is not, no.
Okay, it's something that we, as Lewis said, we had talked about at a prior meeting. We spoke about at the SU meeting. This is something that she was going to provide for, spring. And I thought it was just a good informational piece for board members to have. So in the spring, when we talk about bill backs, you understand time studies and the disallowed expenses. So it's really just an informational handout for you to have. And in the spring, as you know, that's historically when we talk about what the bill backs are. So if you do have any specific questions about that, you are welcome to email Christine for clarifications. The next piece is policy. In your packet, you have the prevention of sexual harassment as prohibited by Title IX. I don't know, Chris, do you want to speak about the policy?
Sure. So this is a piece of actually legislation that came about a while back, but so in mid-August, this really became a law for schools here in Vermont. And so sexual harassment used to be tucked into the harassment and bullying, and so therefore they've extracted this and made it a separate policy. This is the model policy that the VSBA came up with. And it's a blend of policy and procedure. And part of the reason for that is because there are very specific steps and protocols that must be taken. And so as I explained to the policy committee, my recommendation was that we take the model policy from the VSBA, the whole thing, and implement that within our schools. It is very lengthy. It's very dense, very thick, but there's a lot in there that we cannot deviate from. So therefore, I felt it just our best interest to just take this policy and adopt it.
And technically, it's already law. We're just now adopting it. I mean, we're already obligated to follow it. So it's really just a procedural issue here.
Right. If there is a situation, real quickly, if there is a situation in schools, this would be the policy and procedure that our administrators would follow. So
I would make a recommendation to adopt it.
I second that. This is Gail.
Motion by Jim, second by Gail. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next meeting date is December 21st. If you have future agenda items, feel free to email myself or Chris, and I'll make sure that they will be addressed on the next agenda. We do need to have an executive session for a personnel matter or personnel matters. Is there any other business to come before the board from board members?
No, this is Kristen Ross. There's a separate Google Meet for the exec session, right, Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
Did everyone receive that invitation for the executive session meeting?
Yep. I did not.
I don't think I did either.
Okay.
Maybe.
So, Chris, could you?
I'll send it right now.
We'll wait
If
a
you could
couple
just
minutes.
give the, if we could just have the numbers, you wouldn't have to do that.
The phone number? Let
Yeah.
me see if I
and
have.
And the PIN number too.
Well,
I
I'll
have it
email
if you want it.
I'll email it to you guys. Okay.
Don't say it as we're recording if it's supposed to be private.
Yeah, Jim, you were on the list, and so I'll send it to Nate and Jim right now. Okay. Anybody else
Yeah, I have it. I'm good.
Okay.
Send it to both
So
too.
if
I just had a
there's
quick question.
nothing else, sure, go ahead.
No, I just didn't know. I'm bumped offline, so I'm on my phone, so I'm just not sure if we are leaving or not joining executive session. I just wanted to know.
I think just the board is moving into executive session.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Night, guys.
Thank you.
Nate, did you get the email?
I don't think so. I'm looking right now.
All right, it might have gone to your Yahoo one, Nate.
Oh, okay.
Let me just
Chris, I need
Does
that.
everyone?
You need it as well, Lewis? Okay.
All right. Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Jim, did you get the number?
I did not.
It was sent to your GRCSU one, Jim. Is there another? I'll
jfmlfm@aol.com.
Okay, I'll do that one. All right.
I got it. Thanks.
So are we good? Are we good to hang up here and go into the other one,
Need a
Lisa?
motion to move into executive session at 7:23 and everyone can rejoin.
Seth will make that motion to move into executive session 7:23.
And a second?
Nate.
Nate, great. All right, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So everyone can sign off of this and move into the next meeting, okay?